Right, good evening and welcome to this meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council's Planning Committee. I am Councillor David Brotherton and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting. Only members of the public who are registered to speak are allowed to do so, and I'll call them to speak during the appropriate agenda item. This meeting is being held at our offices in Abbey House, Abingdon. Committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. The meeting is being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. This system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. Some procedural matters for speakers and other members of the public who have logged in remotely. Please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is a decision-making committee of the Council, and it is important that the set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application, either on paper or electronically. We will first hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, then objectors, supporters, and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the speakers. The committee may then ask questions of clarification of the planning officer. It should be noted that committee members' officers may be using electronic devices for reference throughout the meeting. The committee will then debate and vote on each application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hands clearly and keep it raised to allow a count to take place. If it's unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I will ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. There are a few housekeeping announcements. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and go to Assembly Point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Officer will be here present, will assist you. Can everyone please ensure that their mobile phones are switched to silent or switched off for the duration of the meeting? Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so by the front door in reception. When the meeting has finished, I will ask for confirmation that the live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. That was item 1 on the agenda. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence were received from Councillor Ali Gordon-Creed.
Minutes of the previous meeting to adopt and silence a correct record of the Planning Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of August 2024. It says here.
July. Today's the 14th. Today's the 14th.
Today's the 14th. I just realised that.
17th of July.
I'm only writing what Darius, reading what Darius wrote, so we won't do that one then, Darius. Declaration of interest to receive.
Sorry, Chair, it was the 17th of July with the minutes that may have been incorrect.
It was the 17th of July, not 2024.
Sorry, mate. Misjudged traffic.
We have a proposal.
I'll move the minutes, Chair.
Thank you.
Of the 17th of July.
Of the 17th of July, not the 14th of July. That's seconded and agreed. That's seconded. All agreed. Thank you. Where was I? Declaration of interest. To receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interests, and non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. I see none. Urgent business. Receive notification about if it's a chair determined to be considered as urgent business.
There's no urgent business.
There are no urgent business. Brilliant. Okay, the next one is public participation, but that means we will move to the planning applications. And the first application we have is P23 S3379, land north of Rectory Road, Great Haisley. And the planning officer is Andy Heron.
Thank you, Chair.
Andy, can you take us through us, please, with us, please? Sorry. take us through it, please.
Indeed. The officer recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed on Appendix 4. This application is referred to committee following an objection from Great Hazley Parish Council with concerns with the scale of development and inclusion of a strip of land beyond the neighbouring garden. You may recall a similar proposal was approved at committee last year for a plot adjacent to the southeast. As with the neighbouring plot, this application follows a previous outline permission for a single-storey dwelling.
Sorry, Chair, I wonder whether we should just pause for a moment because we've got no plans on the screen.
Nothing on the screen.
I know members have got their papers, but if I'm just going to refer to certain things.
Sorry, Paula, can't you see the plans? Because I'm sharing my screen.
You've got your work.
All I can see is the
wheel of death.
the wheel of death.
Oh, I'll see if I can continue. Well, I'll try and reload. Bear with me.
Like you should, I think it's worth just pausing or just
Yes, yeah, we'll just see if we can get the right relevant terms. Well, the wheel of death has been going all the hard time we've been sat here, hasn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's the favourite one. In switch it off, Terry, so switch it back on. Normally works.
Yeah, that's this one.
It's just switched the wrong one off.
No, that's right. No, this is all the same thing that, yeah, the same thing that we
This is not permission here.
Yeah.
She's not shown.
That doesn't work. We can always rejoin.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's me.
This is the one we're looking at, and that's the bit that keeping in partly.
Yeah, not mine's on.
Not clearly.
Whatever it is, the principle of development is established there. It knows that it's simply too big.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in change.
See if I can.
I'm going to rejoin the meetings. No, there's no sharing. It's just loading.
It's not in there. Before.
No, I think it's all in there. But I obviously know that there is, but perhaps. Yeah, there's nothing urgently.
The papers are all online.
Yes, yes, okay.
Sorry, would you like a hard copy? I believe you're the agent for this application.
No, I'm right today.
Yes, I was just about the two.
Some photos.
Two
From the last Which application, yeah.
Oh, they're the
The
last
last
one.
one.
The last one.
So, okay, in which case I think we could, yeah.
If Henry's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
we have no screen, we'll have to refer to our reports. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you may recall a similar application referred last year, the adjacent plot. This application also seeks a full permission as per the previous adjacent plot for a larger 1.5 storey dwelling to follow other recent approvals at several dwellings and to the southwest. The rear strip of land that the council, parish council has referred to is provided at our ecologist's request and to create a net gain in biodiversity. It will be grassland which will create habitats for local wildlife. And to help manage the ecological enhancements, condition 4 concerning the landscape ecological management plan will include some additional wording as advised by our ecologist, requiring the enhancement to take place for a minimum period of 30 years. The main difference, as you'll see from your plans in your pack, in terms of, I think it's going to be a 1.5 storey increase as opposed to the indicative plans that outline which were a single storey. There will also be to create headspace, some dormer windows, and a rear gable, which will increase the footprint of the dwelling. The width of the dwelling will increase by 800 millimetres, and the depth will increase by 5.3 metres. The height of the dwelling will be 950 millimetres higher when compared to the previous approval. Although the height, and again, if you refer to your plans, will be 750 millimetres lower than the recently approved dwelling to the southeast. I hope to show you some photos, but basically just to describe them very quickly, it's slightly lower and same kind of footprint, kind of like a T-shaped, L-shaped layout as some of the neighbouring properties. That concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Sorry, I am on my speaker list, Councillor Jake Brown from Great Hazley Parish Council. I don't see,
Not with us.
don't see him with us.
Not online, Chair.
He's not online. Well, he's registered to speak virtually, but he's not online, therefore we can't actually hear him. Come on. No, can't take that. Okay. So the next person on my speakers list is Henry Venice. Go to the table, please, Henry.
Dad, I come to these meetings for that very reason about that you might not actually end up online. Thank you. To give a bit of background to this, I was the planning consultant who submitted the original outline planning application. And although I'm a planner rather than an architect, I feel it important to set the context that I hand drew the original submission in order to make the point about the feel of how you enter the village. But unfortunately, you can't see the photographs, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Great Hazley, but the first dwelling that you come to is a very low dwelling. There's then a gap waiting for this house to come in after the approval of the two houses in outline. The adjacent house has now been built. After that, you get two relatively new houses that are the taller still and also nearer to the road. And then the sixth house in the road is a two-storey house. So as part of the idea during the outline application that was discussed with the planning officer at the time, Mr. Bowers, was that you just had a gradual approach into the village. So what we feel we've done in this this proposal, I didn't actually draw the plans. You do have a nice soft entry into the village by the house being set reasonably well back behind a quite tall hedge, between 2 metres and 3 metres, depending on the time of year and the amount of growth at the front of the site. And then it's sort of a feathered edge, so there's no abrupt change in any way. And I feel that that's a very sensitive and appropriate design for this entry point to the village, which was the one of the parish council's concerns. There were two letters of objection made to the application, which are referred to, which are both from the same household, which is not actually either of the houses to either side. Both those people wrote in to support the ones that are immediately either side. But the next but one house wrote the objection on two grounds, one of which was, as you'll see in the report, I think at paragraph 3.4, about potential overbearing and loss of privacy. I really can't reconcile that, because there is another house directly in between the objector's house and the plot which is being proposed, which completely obscures all vision and any impact, really. The second aspect was something that I think perhaps people hadn't understood about the incoming need for biodiversity net gain from applications. So we do have what might appear on plan, at least, to appear an unusual site area in that it's the plot, and then there's this additional area of land to the rear. That area at the moment is Christmas trees under a commercial plantation. Don't really do a great deal for ecology, because the grass has to be mown very short in order for the Christmas trees to grow. So we're going to take that out of the plantation area and only manage that for biodiversity. So there won't be any Christmas trees grown there, which is probably likely to create a nicer aspect and outlook from the rear of the adjoining homes than the existing situation. So really, in all regards, we feel we've done everything that we should have done in order to come up with a sympathetic design, one that's neighbourly, hence there being no neighbour objections. And although it's ahead of the 10% requirement for biodiversity net gain, I've actually got a 10% gain, even though this is sort of an older application, as it were, so that it really meets all council policies, and is proposed as a self-built home for someone that's lived in the village all their life and their family has farmed there for hundreds of years, and they want to carry on in the village and move in. They're sort of waiting to move in as we speak, because the previous grant of planning permission for the two homes, they're ready to go. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a hold up with drainage matters, but that's all been resolved, and that's why the application has taken longer than usual to be resolved. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellis. Chrissy, has anybody got any questions? Nobody's got any questions, so thank you very much. Okay. Our next speaker is the ward councillor is Georgina, and I don't see Georgina certainly in the room or on the call. She's not there. She's made no request to specifically to speak. So we'll go back to our planning officer, go back to Andy, see if the committee's got any questions or queries from him. Councillor Rob.
All I would say is I was going to ask you about glazing, but there's such a clear condition about glazing. I had concerns about that large triangular window at the back, but you're satisfied in reading this condition. It's so clear and so tightly worded that it seems, Andy, that we're pretty safe on that, aren't we?
Yeah. We've got a glazing addition that we use for similar proposals back onto countryside to reduce light pollution. So that'll work.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, very quickly. I think our public speakers just joined the meeting. So, I mean, it's up to you as to obviously whether you suspend the rules and go back or whether we carry on.
I think we carry on. Sorry, it's the meeting started at 6, did he not? Yeah. Carry on. Okay. We're going to carry on. Right, because we've gone through the speakers. We have heard all the speakers. We're now consulting with the officer. And our next call is to call for an motion, or if the committee has finished asking questions. Yeah, Councillor Roberts.
I'll propose officer's recommendation, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I can't find any reasons for refusal.
No,
I'm not sure why we're discussing it actually.
I do tend to agree with you, but Councillor MacDonald, you're sectioning that.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion? Councillor Peter.
Only say I get my Christmas trees from the next door. So
You haven't declared interest.
I declared probably a big interest, but no objection to this house.
No.
Well, I have no objection to it, and I think actually where it's cited, it's not going to impact the village at all. So any concerns about that, I can't really understand at all. So yeah,
Councillor.
The parish council objected on the basis that the proposed dwelling was too large, but looking at the dwellings on either side, I think it's exactly the same size, same footprint. It's not smaller. So, I don't think we can object on that basis. And as regards the land at the back, which they expressed concern about, saying the future use is unclear, I think the future use is for biodiversity net gain. So the reason why that's in the red line area has been made clear in the report. So I have no objection to that.
And it's in addition to the report, which said that it had to be maintained for how many years?
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite clear. Okay, I'll go back to Councillor Arlott to sum up.
Yeah, the only point I would mention.
I should have gone to Councillor MacDonald actually.
Okay.
Just
You want to?
Councillor.
I'm going to sum up. Yeah, the only thing I would say was that Mr. Benner's comment on this property will give a soft entry to the village. So I'd like to go and see it when it's complete, just to see what a soft entry to.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Okay, that's it. We've had the application heard and a motion to.
I'll report back when I get my Christmas tree.
We won't be able to get it now.
All those in favour of the motion, please show. Thank you. Thank you. Any against? No against. No, okay, so that is carried. So thank you very much. Right. Right, we'll press on to agenda item 8, B24S0503, which is land east of Dinkley Court, Abingdon Road, Burcott. And the planning officer is Andy Error.
Thank you, Chair. Before I begin, Sharon has kindly posted on the Teams chat a link to the PowerPoint presentation. So hopefully, for those of you who've got Teams available, you might be able to view the slides for this evening's meeting.
I haven't got it, I don't know.
I'll crack on anyway.
Yeah,
so the officer.
Is there a spare copy of the planning paper?
Have you got a copy of the paper?
It's all online.
Yeah, Leah hasn't got paper copies or electronic copies.
Got your phones in?
I mean, last time I had my phone, I said not to use it.
Well, it's okay, but
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can see it.
Right.
Crack on.
So the officer recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions listed in the appendix at the end of the report. This application is referred to committee following an objection from Cliftonhampton Parish Council. The concerns with the impact of development on the openness of the Greenbelt, and consider it will merge Burcott, the neighbouring village of Dorchester-on-Thames. The site is within the Greenbelt and consists of a 0.4 hectare parcel of land to the eastern area of Burcott. It is adjacent to the south of Abingdon Road and is bounded by properties to the east, south and west. The agent submitted an amended red line plan, which I had hoped to show you. Essentially, there was a previous blue line area that included additional landscaping and the existing landscaping adjacent to the road. Officers' requests given to ensure that proposed conditions are enforceable. The red line has been extended to include that. So it's just a little bit of added security. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 3 5-bedroom dwellings, and each dwelling will be served by a detached carport or garage, whilst the access will be taken by the existing access, will be a single access via Abingdon Road. Each dwelling will be situated in a spacious plot, which is set behind the Abingdon Road building line. And although similar in size and scale, each dwelling will be designed differently, incorporating hip roofs with a mix of different materials. Now, this application has been submitted following an initial pre-application in which it was established that the development would represent infill development, as there are buildings to either side of the proposed site. This meets one of the Greenbelt exceptions, providing the building preserves the openness of the Greenbelt. And the site can accommodate 3 proposed dwellings, which will be of a similar size and scale to neighbouring dwellings. These are therefore considered not to harm the openness of the Greenbelt, particularly as they would fit seamlessly into the existing ribbon development along the road, which the existing landscaping along Abingdon Road will remain, whilst additional planting is also proposed, which will be secured by a condition. Now, the Parish Council have raised concerns regards to the potential for the development to merge Burcott and Dorchester, as I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, I've got the slides to show you, but the development is within the built area of Burcott, and we've roughly measured the distance from the built area of Dorchester, and it's approximately 1.1 kilometres away from the built area. Furthermore, the development itself is safely contained within the parish boundary of Burcott as well. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Andy. I've only got one speaker. That's Mr. Bennett.
I too will be slightly hampered by not being able to refer to the pack. But if you have on your screen, it's got the Appendix 1 map that was on the back of the officer's report. There's sort of a wide view location plan, which is quite helpful because that helpfully shows the John Masefield or the Cheshire Care Home, depending on your point of view, which is the kind of the start of Burkett over to the east, and some very large buildings. And then Burkett then continues on for a few hundred metres to the west from there. And that gives you quite a good idea of the sense that this is an infill site within the built-up area of Burkett. Possibly everyone other than the Didcot members would have come that way into Abingdon anyway, so you might have driven past it earlier, and you've got that sense of that the built development starts at that point. This end of Burkett is excellently sited for access to all that Berensfield has to offer now and in future once it's an expanded settlement under the local plan. And there's a very easy stroll to the A4704, which has got the Oxford to Wallingford and Henley bus service that many people use, and I see people walking across from Burkett every day. Burkett is actually fairly well known for its wide array of quite large buildings, and in fact has got 3 care homes: the Grange, the Close, and the Cheshire care home, as a sort of an indication of the general size of buildings. So, although there might have been some concern about these being larger homes, they're actually well placed for the village. They feel like they're in keeping with the general size of it, so that it would feel very much in keeping and not at odds with the grain of the settlement. You'll notice on the layout of the site, if you've got the drawings, that there's a slight setback from the road edge, so as to allow a healthy separation from the road. This is partly for 2 reasons. Firstly, to allow a gap space to the north of the site, to put in the biodiversity space that you're going to become familiar with on lots of sites. And then secondly, to allow a setback from the tall existing roadside hedge. By setting the houses back somewhat, that allows the hedge to flourish and to actually grow up even taller and maybe even become a tree line at some point, and also allow for some additional planting behind there to act as a soft edge in front of the houses behind. Retention of the hedge would obviously be desirable for ecology and heritage reasons, and as Mr. Alec points out, it would offer a softening to the development. Unfortunately, you aren't able to see my photographs of the hedge, but hopefully some of you will know it anyway. There are no holes to be created in the hedge. We've taken the decision to use an existing access. As to be made ever so slightly wider, would only result in the removal of 1 laurel bush, which isn't part of the original hedge anyway. And the new planting will more than make up for the loss of that 1 laurel to create an entranceway where 2 cars can pass. There's quite a wide verge at the entrance, so that any cars waiting to join the road have got really good visibility of people using the pavement and using the road more generally. The officer has explained the careful approach that we took to the design, modulation and articulation. That's another one of the things in Burkett, that every house is really of an individual design. So we've taken that on board so that each house is of an individual design rather than sort of a copycat design that you might get on a larger estate. I'd also wish to comment that there are no objections to design. The one neighbour comment referred to actually welcomes the idea of new houses in the village, but their main comment was about sensitivity to dark skies that Councillor Robb referred to, and the officer has recommended a condition that would assist in dealing with that. Again, it's becoming quite commonplace to us now to have a treatment applied to glazing in order to minimise lighting, and also to apply louvers and sort of brise-soleil type adornments to windows in order to limit the impact. And of course, from the north, the hedge will be retained, and that will preclude light spill out to the front. In relation to the openness of the green belt, infill dwellings are allowed as an exception to development in the green belt, so it's not inappropriate development. And the distance that Mr. Heron referred to as separating the site from Dorchester is considerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Committee, are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Arlott.
Yeah, on the first drawing, I'm not sure what house this is, A, B or C. Are they 2 Velux roof lights in the roof there?
Yes, I think they lie down to the landing space.
They are, so there's no rooms in the roof?
No.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Venice. Don't see Councillor Casey Warehair around. She's been in touch. Andy?
No.
No, okay, so we'll move back to the planning officer. Anybody got any questions of the planning officer on this application? See none, so okay, I'll go in for a motion then, please. What motion?
I give officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Has that seconded? Councillor Case Fitzgerald, thank you very much. Wish to speak now?
No, I'm quite happy to follow.
No, I'll let Councillor MacDonald speak.
Yeah, I'm just in terms of that, it is quite far away from Dorchester in terms of the distance. The development is not out of keeping with the surrounding properties. There's good access. I take officer's point about when coming in and out, egress and so on, that there are good viewpoints on the road. It's quite a busy road, but it isn't 30 at that point. And I can't see a reason to reject.
Okay, thank you. Is there any debate? Anybody else to speak in debate? No, so I'll go back to Councillor Fitzgerald for a second speech.
Follow exactly what Councillor MacDonald said. There is no reason to object.
Okay. Back
It's
to
a
Councillor
sound-
MacDonald to.
I have nothing really to add. It looks like the local pub, and we want to keep our local pub to have a few more customers. So please nearby. And
Okay, but we'll go straight to votes. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. So thank you.
We're leaving Oxfordshire Village very smoothly on the outside now, aren't we? Or it's softening.
Okay, we'll press on.
New buzzwords.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Nice and straightforward. So.
Yeah.
I was worried in that other chat. Right, we'll move on to Keith. All right, does anybody want a 2-minute break? A quick break?
You
You normally do.
Yes.
I'm going to go get some water anyway.
For those online, I'm going to take a very short comfort break.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to P23 S2215, which is 9 Kill Lane, Garsington. The planning officer is Jeremy Peter. Jeremy, you're there.
I am. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you. You're aware that we've got technical issues. We can't see any other screens.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try my best to guide you through it the best I can. I hope Sharon said that she had sent through something on the chat, so hopefully some of you can access the photographs and plans. So I'll start.
Sent on email as well. Did Sharon send that on email?
I believe on chat.
It's on Teams.
On Teams.
Yeah, yes.
We haven't got the thumbs in the package.
Sharon has just pinged me to say that she's going to try and send it on email. Shall I carry on anyway, or do you want to
Carry on anyway.
wait?
Yes, carry on anyway. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This application is a Section 73 application, which initially was to remove conditions 1 and 4 relating to a temporary permission that was granted in 2019 on appeal for a gypsy traveller site in the designated Oxfordshire Greenbelt. That appeal allowed the siting of a mobile home, a touring caravan, and an amenity block, as well as associate development. The applicant has subsequently confirmed that he would be happy with a personal permanent permission. The recommendation is to grant another temporary consent subject to conditions. So in effect, the recommendation is agreeing to the resumption of a personal permission, but not to make it permanent. The application is before you because of objections by Garsington Parish Council and a request by the ward councillor for the application to come to committee. It should be noted that this is not an ordinary planning application. Gypsy traveller applications raise a number of personal issues that have to be considered as required by law and policy, such as the Human Rights Act, the Equality Act 2010, and a specific national policy for gypsy travellers. As I say, I was going to move on to the slides, but obviously you can't see them at the moment. But basically, the site is located to the southwest of Garsington, down a bridleway known as Kill Lane. It is got a number of temporary consents for gypsy traveller sites in off that particular bridleway. The applicants, what's unusual about this particular site is the applicant has his brother living at plot number 12 and his father and sister living at plot 7 and 8. And those plots were granted temporary consents on appeal again in November 2022 for until 2027. Now, with regard to this particular application, I have determined the main issues are whether the development would be an inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, whether there are very special circumstances that amount to material considerations that outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. There are also subsidiary matters such as the impact on character and appearance, impact on traffic on the bridleway, amenity of residents, and the enforcement of conditions. It is my planning judgment that whilst there is harm to the Greenbelt, and notwithstanding those other matters, the personal circumstances of the applicant, and in particular the needs of the children, which are a primary consideration in case law and appeals, combined with the lack of 5-year supply of gypsy traveller sites and the lack of an alternative site for them to go to, amount to very special circumstances that outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. Consequently, taking into account the best interests of the children, the applicant's human rights, his and his family's right to pursue a travelling lifestyle, and the public sector equality duty, as well as the appeal decisions that granted temporary consent on plots 7, 8 and 12, it is recommended that temporary planning permission be granted in relation to plot 9 that will end at the same time as the permissions on plots 7, 8 and 12. That is on the 3rd of November 2027. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jeremy. We'll come back to you shortly, I think. Okay, we have one speaker registered, which is Councillor Anne Eastwood from Garsington Parish Council. If you'd like to come to the chair, please, and speak to us. And you have 5 minutes from when you start.
The parish council has always maintained that the area is unsuitable for a gypsy travelling site. It is in the greenbelt and it is too close to the residential property. As Jeremy says, it's a charming bridleway, which in the past has had ancient hedges containing spindle and guelder rows, has been changed into a tarmac road bounded by high fences. The current temporary permission expired last year. James McDonough has not adhered to any of the conditions, and I'm sad to say SODC has made no attempt to enforce them. James and his family haven't lived there for at least 3 months this year. It is thought that he's moved them to Swindon or Kidlington, where he has another plot. He's been renting the property out to other people who have been seen on site. He's changed the original mobile home for another larger one, placing it closer to the path, and in so doing damaged some of the few remaining trees and vegetation in the lane. The overriding special needs, which you mentioned, no longer apply. The original permission was given because the child required medical attention. This was a long time ago, and I can't remember exactly when the first one was given. However, he is now at least 10 years older, and in any case, they're not living there at the moment. Should you agree to this, we agree that the temporary permission, we do agree it would be safe to have it until 2027, when they can all be determined in one go. But it really, I mean, he takes no notice of it at all.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Eastwood. Richie, have we got any questions? Councillor.
Yes. So you say that Mr. the applicant, Mr. James McDonough is not living there?
No. I mean, we know they travelled. Last year they travelled to Australia for 3 months and to Canada the year before, or vice versa. But no, he's not there. And as I say, it is thought by people that he has, well, we know he has another pitch in Kidlington, and it's thought that he's now moved to Swindon.
Sorry, this is his permanent home though, is it? Even though he's...
Debatable. He's hardly been there. He is part of the, as Jeremy says, that it is his brother and other relatives live in the other blocks.
Okay, thank you. No further questions for the committee. So thank you, Councillor. You're welcome to stay. Okay. I noticed that Councillor James Lorry is online. Sam, do you wish to speak?
Good afternoon. And yes, I would like to speak. Can everybody hear me?
We could hear you fine, thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Kiln Lane is a site within Garsington's Greenbelt that has been subject to ongoing and excessive development. What was once a simple bridleway in a protected area has been altered by continuous development. The introduction of tarmac to a bridleway and repeated breaches of planning regulations have resulted in significant changes that threaten the character and integrity of the area. These breaches of planning applications are well documented in official planning records, as seen in the relevant planning history, and have been subject of concern among many residents. The previous planning permissions were clear. The site was granted temporary status, which was due to end in 2023. We are now faced with proposal for a permanent development. The impact of the overdevelopment at Kiln Lane extends far beyond the visual changes of the landscape. The area's biodiversity and natural habitats have already suffered significant harm. Restoring these ecosystems to their former health will require a considerable amount of time. It is also crucial to consider how this development aligns, or rather fails to align, with the planning framework that guide our community. The site in question does not conform to the local plan or Garsington's neighbourhood plan, both of which are designed to ensure that development is appropriate and sustainable. These plans are in place to protect areas like Kiln Lane from precisely the kind of overdevelopment we are seeing. Moreover, Policy E of the Planning Policy for Traveller Sites explicitly states that development within the Greenbelt is considered inappropriate development. Despite this, we are now seeing applications for permanency and recommendations for temporary extensions that directly contradict this policy. We've seen time extensions granted in the past, but it is clear that this must come to an end. Allowing continued residency at Kiln Lane would not only disregard the planning rules designed to protect our community, but would also set a precedent for future development in the Greenbelt areas. I urge all of you to consider the long-term implications of allowing further residency at Kiln Lane, the impact on our environment, the risks to local biodiversity, and the challenges to our planning policies are significant and cannot be overlooked.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor James Lorry. Anybody got any questions for the Councillor? Seeing on, so thank you very much for your input. Okay. Okay, we'll go back then to our planning officer, Mr. Feater, who seems to have disappeared.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You are there.
Oh, sorry, I forget you can't see me.
Yeah. Where's he gone?
I'm here.
You are there. You can hear
you hear
us.
me?
Yes, I think, well, I'm sure there are questions for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
You're proposing am I right to say a temporary consent to the year 2027? And is that also restricting the occupancy to a named occupant, Mr. James McDonald, nobody else? Is that right?
That is correct. Yes, Councillor. Yeah. If you look at condition 1, which I'm proposing, that actually specifies that quite clearly.
So what happens if Mr. McDonald doesn't live there?
If we have the problem we have is having conclusive evidence. There's anecdotal evidence, but we have nothing conclusive. If we have conclusive evidence that he isn't living there, then of course it's in breach of the condition and we can take action.
Yes, presumably he's a traveller. He's entitled to travel around the world. As it's anecdotally reported.
He travels for business and for work. That's what the definition allows him to do. It doesn't specify exactly where. So I don't think I've seen the policy whether there's any restrictions on where they can go.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Councillor Peter.
I've got a few questions, but I'll start with one. So there was a couple of discrepancies in the various submissions we heard. Councillor James Lorry talked about sort of degree of permanence. Can you explain that? Because these you're saying that they're going to be temporary to 2027, but he suggested maybe there's some permanence here. And what are the material contraventions of that have been transgressed, and like the tarmacking of the right of way, was that a transgression? And why has no action been taken to enforce those?
Right, let me deal with your first one, Councillor. There is no permanency being recommended. It's the sites that are down there have all got temporary consent at the moment. I think it's worth providing some context here. We have resisted development of gypsy traveller sites down that particular lane. They've all been to appeal in 2019 and 2022, and they got turned, and the inspectors at the time allowed the appeals on the basis of the personal circumstances of the particular residents, the lack of a 5-year licensed supply of sites, and the lack of alternative sites for the residents to go to. So we're sort of got a inspector's decisions on material considerations. I've taken the view that I'm following on that situation where I'm recommending a temporary consent to give the council an opportunity to do the work they're actually in the process of doing another gypsy traveller assessment in order to do the work to see if there's alternative sites that can be found. That's why I'm recommending it's a temporary consent, not permanent, and that applies to all 3 sites that are being occupied by the applicant and his family at the moment. With regard to the conditions, with the bridleway is a private road. We have got no control over a private road, and I was informed when this tarmacking was undertaken about 4 years ago, that it was being for maintenance purposes. So we've got no control over the road. With regard to the actual site itself in plot 9, yes, there has been a breach of conditions insofar as a larger mobile home has occurred on the site, and they have put paving across the whole site. We've taken the view not to take action because they were coming up. It was a 4-year permission, and this I would like to reiterate. It was always going to be for temporary period, and at the end of the day, the condition, I think it's condition 5 to the permission, does require. Sorry, not to condition 5. Condition 4 that I'm recommending does require all paraphernalia, all structures, all associated development to be removed from the land. But yes, I mean, there are issues about the conditions that we need to sort of look at now once we get this, if this application is recommended and approved, sorry.
So just a little addendum to that then. So are you saying if this goes to go out to 27, there's a slightly more permanent, you would be then enforcing the conditions?
Yes.
Can I talk about enforcement?
Sorry, just clarify. With regard to enforcement case, obviously it's a case by case basis. We will look at each case on its merits at that particular moment.
Jeremy, can I just let the committee know that Emma Turner, who's the enforcement officer, is online, and we're going to hear from her in a moment.
Oh, right, great.
Yeah, okay. So just carry on, Gemma. We'll hear from Emma shortly.
Well, that was all I was. I think that was the response to the queries. Is there any more? Unless he's got something else.
Questions? Joe, did you have a question?
No, it was relating precisely to that point around permanency. The proposal is not for permanency. No. It's for temporary, an extension of temporary to 2027, in line with the other
plots.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I see no further questions. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask Emma if she can come online and answer that question about enforcement.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to follow on from Jeremy's answer, if a decision is made this evening to recommend, following Jeremy's recommendation to approve, then obviously we have all the sites are then aligned, and we will then push forward with reviewing the whole of Kiln Lane and looking at any individual breaches of conditions that may be actually happening on the land. And if that is the case, we will then look at all those and look at the expediency of enforcing all or any of those conditions on there, obviously in accordance with our national law policy and also our own enforcement statement.
Emma, it's somewhere in the discussions it's come up that someone else is living in that caravan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What could be done about that?
I think Jeremy sort of answered that as well, in that obviously we have to look at all the information that's put before us, and we have to gather our own evidence. And if there's sufficient evidence working with our legal team that they feel as though that we can enforce against, we can identify a breach of condition or an issue that can be enforced against, we will enforce against it. But it very much relies on the quality of the evidence put forward. And obviously we are very grateful of the local community with any information they can give us, because we can't be there permanently, but we do ad hoc visits, and to actually prove that somebody's not there permanently isn't an easy one to prove. But we aren't saying that we will not enforce those conditions. Of course, we have a duty to investigate all breaches of planning control, and we will do so and investigate when it's expedient to do so.
Thank you, Emma. I think Councillor Beard has got another question.
Yeah, I mean, I can see I think we can all see pretty clearly how that would be tricky. But the sort of larger building they put on, or potentially paving over the area if that's not allowed, they're pretty obvious breaches. What action could potentially be taken if you did decide that the building's too big?
So if any structure is too large or any element isn't approved and it's subject to a condition, we can serve what's called a breach of condition notice, and that then gives we can set a time frame for them to build in accordance with what is approved on that plot. And if they don't abide by the terms of that notice, then it's a criminal offence and we can prosecute them. There is no right of appeal to the planning inspectorate for a breach of condition notice. So it's quite a straightforward matter for those types of breaches.
Thank you.
Sorry, the other one, Emma, is that it keeps saying that a bigger caravan has been brought onto site, but I don't see any limitations on what a size of a caravan should be. It's a caravan.
Absolutely. There is a size a definition, a caravan. There are statutory definitions of what caravans are and sizing, and as long as they conform to that, then they are still a caravan. So unfortunately, the fact that changing one caravan for another is not actually unusual over a period of time, and obviously I do take the point of the local community that a lot of damage is done down the lane when that happens, but we cannot control that element, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Further question, Catherine?
Just a point of clarification. Did I understand you correctly? You seem to be suggesting that actually bringing this particular plot in line with the other two in terms of the termination of the temporary permission, so all three plots are aligned, would actually help be useful in terms of actually what we're trying to do in terms of a proper final solution, finding a site for people like this. Was that what you were saying?
Well, I think it just helps in terms of the fact that we can't obviously see what happens in the future in terms of the local plan, but it's hoped that we will actually be able to have we will have policies for gypsy travellers in the new joint local plan coming forward. We'll actually be able to have an allocation for gypsy travellers, and alternative locations will come forward for them that may be deemed to be more suitable than where they are currently. And obviously in terms of how we work with in terms of efficiencies and effectiveness of our working within an area, now that we've actually, with this application now being then in terms of timeframes and the nature of the applications all being more aligned, it means that we can uniformly work across all the plots to make sure that all the plots abide by the terms of the temporary permissions that they have. That's of course if the committee decides to agree this evening.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Committee, is there any further questions for Emma or for Mr. Peter? I see none, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for your input. Committee, then it's over to you. Councillor Trigger.
I propose officer recommendation that the temporary consent is granted with the conditions that have been set out. That it is restricted to James McDonald and his wife Lena Lawrence and their resident dependents, and shall be for a limited period, as set out on page 80 of the page 80 and 81 of our the report.
Okay.
And so 80 and 82 as well.
81 and 82. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that seconded? I will second that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's open for debate then. Is there a debate, Councillor Bearder?
Well, I think this is very obviously a contentious one and difficult one, and I'd like to thank residents for, the sort of. I know this has been going on for a long time in Garsington, and they've kept a diligent eye on proceedings, and it can't have been easy. There's a couple of things that lead me to the way I'm going to vote. First of all, the history of the site and our experience with the planning inspector. We're custodians of public money and have to act responsibly in that sense. And just sort of repeatedly banging your head against a brick wall is not in the interest of anybody, and particularly precious council tax revenue. And so the kind of precedent has been set. It's pretty obvious, I believe, that we would lose this appeal as well. And I think there are advantages with unifying the whole site. We could then potentially look into taking serious enforcement action for the transgressions, and it can all be determined as one. But my main criticism is for the previous administration. I'm not going to get overly political, but we've signed off. Well, Robert Jenrick signed off the current local plan against our wishes, and it was clearly deficient in a very serious way, because by not getting it right, by not genuinely looking out for proper travellers and gypsy sites across South Oxfordshire, is a real failing, not only for those residents who have the right to have a place to live and to put down caravans and etc., but for our residents in villages like Garsington who have suffered the consequences of not getting that right. I'm delighted that we are accelerating the joint local plan. I haven't scrutinised the Egyptian travellers areas of that plan, but I urge officers to get that, to really throw the net wide and come up with some solutions, because you can't keep dodging this. It's a tricky thing to get answer to get right, but we have to provide some sites in North South Oxfordshire. I think it's incumbent morally for us to do that, and so I would reluctantly back the proposal with those important caveats.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whittle. Any further comment, Councillor Arlott?
Yes, Chairman. There's obviously concern about who is going to live in this property, and I don't see the point of putting item 2 on the recommendation. You've got item 1, which you're saying is for Mr. James McDonough, his wife Lena Lawrence, and their residents dependents. And then you go on to item 2, which says the site shall not be occupied by any person other than gypsies and travellers as defined in Annex 1. So you're now saying if they're not there, anybody can live in there. I don't think you need item 2 there. It's all there in item 1. If you put item 2 in there, you're just going to open up a can of worms in my view. So I'll be interested in what you think about that. Development manager.
Chair, could I bring in Emma or Jeremy at this point, just because I think Councillor Arlott's raised a good point, and I think we need to come back and explain our logic in terms of why we have carried that condition forward, because we would look carefully at every condition that we recommend
Yes,
to
okay.
you.
Can I just see if there are any other comments from the committee? Anybody else wishes to speak? Councillor Rob.
Just to reiterate the points that other people have made, this is obviously highly contentious. It's very painful for the local community who've been through an appeal process, and the council lost that appeal. I think that extending, as it were, the temporary permission to 2027 to bring it in line with the other plots makes sense. And then at that point, the council can take a holistic approach, hopefully, by which point we will have proper policies and strategic sites allocated for gypsy and traveller communities. But for the moment, I don't think we would have any justification in refusing this. So I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Rob. I can't see any other hands raised, so I'll take.
Shall I come in?
Yeah, thank you.
Jeremy, are you there?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm here. Shall I come in? Right. Because it's a Section 73 application asking to remove certain conditions, it's a normal course of events. You actually you put in the same conditions that were part of the appeal, unless they've been discharged or what have you. Now, the appeal inspector specifically said that it has to be occupied by people who are gypsy travellers. Now, the fact of the matter is, Mr. McDonough could cease travelling. He could he decide he's not a gypsy anymore, he's not travelling anymore, in which case he wouldn't require the pitch. So I'm just following on the logic of the inspector in terms of inconsistency. If you look at the appeal decision in your report, condition 2 is the same as I'm recommending.
Okay, I might take Councillor Arnott's point on this, but I think that explains it. Yeah.
Well, it does, but you're allowing anybody to go in there. You get
No.
Peter Smith and his wife could move in there, which are not gypsies, but they could say they're gypsies.
Well,
No, because then it would.
No, but they have to.
Yeah, but we don't know that, do we?
I think what Mr. Peter's saying is that's what the appeal inspector put in. Therefore, he's actually carried on with what the appeal inspector put in, regardless of the fact that it might be double.
A bit belt and braces.
A bit belt and braces, really. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions or speeches? Councillor Catherine, sorry.
Well, I totally agree with the reasoning that's been put forward so far for the next stage, but I mean, would it be in education of this section 2, would it be possible to say, to be specific, so long as these named parties retain this status? Would that be permissible?
I don't think it's necessary. Sorry, I can see what you're
Well,
saying.
no, but it would get you over this. I think
Joe, I might offer some advice. We are strongly advised to be consistent in our approach. Here we are very much following the footsteps of an inspector, right, and the way they've approached it at sort of thorough appeal process. And I think for consistency, my advice would be to stick with the 2 conditions. The first, obviously, is the personal restriction, which is absolutely appropriate, and the second is also referring to it applying whilst those people fall within the definition of gypsies and travellers. I can see that Emma Turner has put her hand up, David, and I wondered if we could just
yes, Emma.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair. Just to answer, actually, it's a 2-stage process. So the regardless of the order in which they come on the decision notice, as Jeremy's stated in his presentation, as you see in the report, the whole context and the way that the decision and the application has been determined is in the context that this is a gypsy traveller plot. So that really comes first. So the inspector's saying this decision is for gypsy travellers only, and then he's actually they further tightened it by saying, and in these circumstances it's for these named persons only. So I would urge you to retain both conditions, because it actually reinforces the context of the permission or the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, I should now sort of speak, I suppose, as seconder. I appreciate this is difficult and different to what we normally think. In response to Councillor Bearder's comments about lack of sites, I am aware that the District Council are trying to obtain sites. It's not easy. Nobody wants them in their backyard, do they? So it's not easy, and it's trying to convince developers that little plot over there, but they won't do it. So it is happening. It's trying to do it, but there's no guarantee that in 3 years' time we'll have achieved it. So, that's the issue, really. It's not like an effort; it's like of being able to do it. Yeah, back at achieving it. So we're going to try harder. Yeah. All right. I'll go back to the proposal of the site. So the proposer of the motion for his summing up.
Yes. Well, I think you all know that this is a particularly difficult matter here that we're considering, and we perhaps have some sympathy with the other residents of Garsington. I think in this case we have to recognise that there's a special circumstances with the gypsy travellers that ruled by law, and I think the recommendation we have before us tonight is is addressing all the constraints of this of the legislation and the requirements that we have to meet, and put as tight a situation, as tight a control as possible on this particular site, and it is a temporary permission until 2027. I'm sure the exact day and month, but I'm sure we'll be, if we get re-elected again, we will have this application coming before the planning committee again. There's something slightly different variants, but tonight let's go with the recommendation that we have.
Okay, straight to the vote. All those in favour of the proposal, please show. Those against? Thank you, committee. All right, that's the last application of tonight. We'll move on. Just a note about appeals.
Yeah,
And I think we were all pleased to read that appeal just recently in
Chinner.
Chinner.
Extraordinary. Yes.
Extraordinary.
Yes.
That was a turnover by this committee and supported that appeal. They should come back with another proposal at site and leave out the offending house, but it's up to them. Okay, the only other thing I've got to say is to say thank you to Darius as his last meeting.
What?
He's going to pastures new
What pastures?
in West Berkshire.
West Berkshire, yeah.
It's a mistake.
Military's poaching people.
You'll regret it.
He'll be back.
And to welcome Becky,
Yeah.
who sat in the back, keeping quiet. But I think she's going to take over. Darius, are you the new Darius? She's under training. We'll see how that works out. Okay. So Darius, I think from the committee, well done. Thank you very much for all your work and all your efforts. Really well appreciated. Yeah.
I did promise we wouldn't cry.
Right, when are we back? Darius, when are we back?
It's mid-September.
Mid-September. That's a long time away.
Yeah. I think it might be
Wednesday the 11th.
Wednesday the 11th.
But if we end the
September.
podcast.
So at the